All right, any second, as soon as it comes up. All right. Welcome back to another episode of 32 and Goal. I am your host, Corey, and today we have Ryan. Ryan, how many of the games did you get to watch last night?
I watched 3 different games yesterday.
Yeah?
I figured that London game would be pretty crazy, so I made sure to check that out. Because even though the Chargers should have ran all over them,
It's
the
London.
Titans' defense is pretty good, and London games usually are pretty weird.
Yeah, I talked about it a little bit with you earlier in the week that I said I think the Chargers are going to blow out the Titans. And, the Titans were one call away from just kicking a field goal and taking it to overtime. I think their coach had a pretty ballsy decision there. They wanted the win.
You look really stupid when it doesn't work out, though. And he went for it twice. They were given an out to just go into overtime. And I understand the Chargers could win in one play. Like, they had made big plays in the game, but I feel like your defense had been playing well, so you go and do that.
Yeah, on top of that, your quarterback wasn't doing that bad either, Marcus Mariota.
They started to find it with Deion Lewis, their running back that was catching passes. They were making first downs. I think they could have made a drive, held the Chargers to without a score and then won the game on a field goal. I think that's totally foreseeable.
Yeah, I think it was just bad. I don't want to say it was bad coaching. A lot of people respect the decision. It shows a lot of confidence in his players. But, take that same confidence to overtime. Like, don't risk it.
Right.
Especially,
the Titans.
Go on.
No, they didn't look that bad. They actually were. They had a formula that could beat any team. They just didn't let the Chargers go on offense. All their drives were like 10 plays or more, just draining the clock. And when their defense was out there, they were kind of extending their defensive drives and really not letting much scoring happen. A few broken plays here and there changed the score, but the Titans, they need to just get like a reliable pass catcher. Like they had guys dropping balls and they just had no one to go to. They lost Delaney Walker, their tight end, who was basically their number one receiver. And I think that changed everything. I feel like this would be a good team with him, which is crazy that one player can make that big of a difference, but they just have no one to get open.
Exactly. And with the Texans pretty much straight dominating the Jaguars yesterday, the Titans are now one game behind the lead in a division that's easily takeable by anyone there.
Yeah, any of them. It's crazy how that is working out. Like, all the teams are so different. The Colts have no defense, but they're scoring so much on everyone. The Texans look like a completely different team. They lost their first 3 games, and they've won like 4 straight since then. Their defense is playing so much better, and the Jags just look like crap. So the Titans should honestly do something. There was rumors they might trade for Emmanuel Sanders from the Broncos. Right. I feel like that would be perfect for their team.
I agree. And the Texans, Deshaun Watson is also playing with like bruised lungs and like damaged ribs and stuff. He's like taking hits.
Yeah, he's in a bad spot.
Exactly. And they're one good O-line away from being a good team. And
we talked about it. Like, those hits he takes.
Dude, week in and week out, and it's like they had to drive him on the bus because they were afraid.
Fly.
Yeah. And that's like something you probably should be like, you can probably sit one game out, man. Like, get your lungs together.
Yeah, that's terrifying. I get where they're coming from. Like, they need their guy, the guy at quarterback, to lead the offense. Because like you said, the offensive line is really bad. And the reason their offense does anything is because Deshaun Watson is so good, and because DeAndre Hopkins is good, and he just forces the ball to him. Yeah. But without them, I mean, there's nothing going on there.
Exactly. They have a okay defense, led by J.J. Watt, but I mean,
get turnovers, and they've got talent. Like Tyrann Mathieu had an interception, the Honey Badger. Mm-hmm. He's a pretty good corner, especially when he plays in the slot. I think they got their safety back. Their safety, who found out he had a form of cancer earlier this year.
Yeah.
So I think they're an emerging team for sure. Deshaun Watson needs to get healthy though.
Exactly. Going forward, they have a pretty easy schedule. They're playing the Dolphins, who are coming off 2 losses in a row, I believe. Nope, they beat the Bears.
Not looking good.
And then lost the Lions yesterday. Did you watch that game?
I did not watch that game. I watched on Johnson's runs.
Yeah. Yeah, on Johnson ran for over 150 yards. The Lions as a whole had more rushing yards than they had receiving yards yesterday. And
the passing game sacrificed itself so that on Johnson could completely break out.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to win. I mean, the Lions needed a running game, and we found the guy.
Right. And LeGarrette Blount did well as well. He had 50 yards, averaged 5 yards a carry. He had a touchdown.
Yeah. And he was the goal line back, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
that's exactly the role he should be in.
I don't know if you saw this, but Stafford completed 18 for 22 passes with 2.
Wow. I know, and he had 2 touchdowns, right?
Yeah, 2 touchdowns, and 2 of those were deflected at the line. Realistically, only one of those was dropped, and that was by Golden Tate. And
that's what happens when you run the ball. Your quarterback, everything's open up. He can just be crazy efficient.
Yeah.
And keep the ball moving.
Michael Roberts, 2 touchdowns, 48 yards, tight end. I think he's stepping up pretty well for the Lions. I don't see him being as good as Eric Ebron, but he doesn't make as many mistakes as Ebron. So, it kind of averages out there.
That's what we talked about before. That's what you want at your tight end. If you know a superstar, just a reliable guy
who can make some blocks, open up that run game a little bit, maybe catch some balls. And Jared Davis is coming into his own too. I think Detroit Lion fans, we're watching this guy slowly evolve into a really good linebacker. He's got the speed.
He was at him yesterday. This was his best game he's had in his career. And I mean, the guy stepped in and immediately they said, "You're our middle linebacker." Last year, so in that role.
Yeah, that's tough as a rookie too. That's one of the hardest positions, I would think. You're basically the quarterback of the defense, and
absolutely,
it's in there.
And if he can really grow into one of the top linebackers, that'll completely change the Lions. I mean, they have the offense going. If the defense can just be a little more bend not break, then they will be one of the top teams.
Yeah, they've been holding teams, the Lions, to a low amount of points in the last couple of games. Dolphins 21, Packers 23, Cowboys 26, Patriots 10. So, I mean, they're doing okay defensively for the last couple of games. Stafford has only thrown 1 interception since week 1. So, when he had 4. So he's doing really well. I think
playing efficiently.
Yeah, I think he's going to quietly have a good year, especially when you have breakout years by Mahomes and Dalton was doing well up until yesterday.
Right. So that Chiefs game was ridiculous. Their defense came to play. There is a thing about Andy Dalton where people they say he just doesn't perform in primetime games. I mean, maybe there's something to that because historically it's worked out that way. But this Chiefs team is on another level.
They really are. Especially we were talking about them earlier, basically being a one-sided team. But yesterday they kind of against Bengals offense, who have been pretty decent this year with Andy Dalton.
They have weapons. Mm-hmm. They have weapons with Joe Mixon, AJ Green, and I mean, they just took them away. I mean, those guys should honestly, rack up yards against the defense like the Chiefs. You'd think, but they came out to play. I mean, if they can do that, that's a Super Bowl team. I mean, this is Patrick Mahomes' first year starting, and we could easily see them winning the Super Bowl. But off their offense, this isn't a situation where he's having a defense carry him and he's doing just enough like Russell Wilson early on. This is all Mahomes and the offense, and the defense is doing just enough.
Yeah, and their offense is so powerful too. Travis Kelce, Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill had some big drops yesterday that would have got him probably about 30, 40 more yards. And
I mean, Kareem Hunt just went insane.
Oh, I know. My mom has her in fantasy football, and he scored like
Three.
40 points.
He had three different. I think he had two receiving touchdowns,
Mm-hmm.
a rushing touchdown, just yards, so many yards. That was the Kareem Hunt game. He was all over the place.
He stiff
There was
armed the
one
same guy
run
twice.
where. Did you see the run where they should have tackled him? It looked like it was just a mess of a pile, and then all of a sudden he comes out of it, and then he leaps over someone and trucks someone else.
Dude,
That was the most beastly run I've seen all year.
Yeah, I feel like in a couple of years we're going to talk about him being one of the greatest running backs. He's slowly already getting there. You look at the best running backs in the league right now.
Last year was his first year, and he led the league in rushing last year.
Yeah, as a
and
rookie.
that was towards the end of this. Yeah, towards the end of the season, they weren't even giving him that many carries. He just was so electric last year. In the same way Tyreek Hill is. Once he gets the ball, if he gets a second to turn on his speed, it's over. And early on this year, people were talking about Kareem Hunt being, at least for fantasy football's sake, a bust because the team wasn't really using him. They were passing so much they didn't need to run the ball, and they've fully integrated him into this offensive show now, and everybody's eating.
The problem with this Kansas City team is it's not sustainable contract wise. We're looking at 3 or 4 people who are still on their rookie contracts who are going to be asking for a ton of money.
Sure, yeah, no, it's hard. That's why it's hard to have a dynasty in the NFL. That's why you go all in. I mean, everybody wondered why they paid Sammy Watkins so much money when they already had so many weapons. But I mean, if they saw that their offense had potential to just blow out good teams, I mean, adding a weapon like that,
exactly,
has probably helped a lot. It takes pressure off other guys. It gets Kelsey and Hill open more.
And Patrick Mahomes is probably going to be the highest paid quarterback in a couple years. So
at one point, he'll take his turn as one of those guys for sure.
So we're looking at a team that has to win in the next couple years, or they're going to be struggling. They're going to lose, Kareem Hunt.
This is their window. I mean, but I think they have like 3 good years to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The Rams, on the other hand, like the other team that people are calling for the Super Bowl, they need to do it this year. They have guys like Ndamukong Suh on 1-year deals. They have guys like a lot of their guys on defense, like Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters. I mean, they're right at they're still good, but they're right at the edge of going over the hill. They're in must win this year mode. That's why I said them not getting the Super Bowl would be a huge upset and disappointing for them because their team will be different next year. I mean, their offense will still be really good.
I mean,
their defense just won't.
They're 2 games ahead of the next team in the NFC North, which is the Saints. So, they're doing really well. 7-0. I mean,
the Rams are on path. I mean, that's with getting injuries like to Cooper Kupp and to like the cornerbacks that I just mentioned. They've been injured. They're finding ways to win. They're finding ways to win games in different ways. I mean, it's not like they're just blowing everyone out. They're winning. They've won close games.
Yeah, they're doing really well. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Kansas City Chiefs, Rams Super Bowl.
Yeah. They play each other in what is that, like 3 weeks?
Down in Mexico.
That game's gonna be insane.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if it's gonna be, we'll talk about it when the time comes. But yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be real good. What else game?
Yeah.
The Bang.
We should talk about the Browns game where they lost in overtime
again. They had an opportunity to win it. They screwed up. Oh man, that was brutal.
And they lost on a 59-yard field goal from a guy who earlier in the game missed an extra point and a 40-yard field goal.
Yeah.
And he hits a 59-yarder to win the game in overtime.
Which is a very ballsy move on the Buccaneers. A guy who missed, like you said, a PAT and a short kick, and they're putting him up for a 59-yard goal.
Balls to put him out there.
That's insane. Winston went 32 for 56, 365 yards, 2 interceptions, 0 touchdowns.
He is a messy quarterback. I mean, he will get you yards, get you points, keep you in games, but he turns the ball over like crazy.
Mm-hmm. I think he gets I see him and he makes decisions, and you're watching the game and you're like, what are you doing? Like, I have no dog in the fight, but Winston, why are you just chucking the ball to someone with 2-3 receivers on him? Like, what are you doing? Mike Evans.
Yeah, he's a gunslinger.
Yeah, well, when you have Mike Evans on your team, it's pretty easy to be a gunslinger, but
yeah,
man,
right, that's a big target.
So, but man, it's got to be brutal being a Browns fan. 4 overtimes this year already in week 7.
Try to rest their hat on is that like this is way more competitive than they've been in years.
Well, last year they did okay too. They went 0-16, but they weren't getting blown out. So like, now they're at that level where they're
still, there was just no hope for the team last year.
No.
Now they can say like, okay, next year we'll come in with, our Nick Chubb looked really good. Their running back. They traded away Carlos Hyde so they could start Nick Chubb, and he looked good. Baker, obviously. I mean, they'll still have Jarvis because they signed him to a contract when they traded for him. This Antonio Callaway, who's one of their, he's a rookie receiver, but he's so talented. He'll be a year further. I think that if I was a Browns fan, I would be like, this year's tough, but man, we're going to be so good moving forward. This is a building block year.
Especially because next year they have like a first round, a second round, 2 third rounds, like a 4th, 3 fifth round picks, a 6th, and 2 7ths. So they have a huge draft going forward. Especially next year is going to be a defensive heavy, team, adding to an already decent defense. It's, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I'm assuming they're not going to pick another quarterback, but it's the Browns, so who knows?
No, absolutely not.
And Baker Mayfield,
I assume they'd make their defense better. Their defense is already on its way. I mean, they've played really well in some games with Denzel Ward at cornerback and Myles Garrett rushing the quarterback. Their defense already has guys who are going to be stars on it, so they can just add more to that. The Browns, I think the Browns have a really good future, and I'm not talking 5 years from now. I'm talking 2 years from now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if they can turn around that team that fast.
And I really do think they can.
Yeah, especially because, with the division, the other guys in those divisions, there's really not a front runner. The Steelers are leading that division with 3-2-1. Bengals are 4-3. Ravens are 4-3. They're all decent teams. They're all about the same level right now. Browns are a couple bad calls, bad plays away from being 4-2 right now, 4-2-1. So it's like,
yeah, for sure. I think, the way they played the Ravens changed altered my perspective on the Browns a lot. They're a pretty good team. I mean, I still think the Ravens are really good. You could just look to yesterday. They almost beat the Saints, or they almost shut down the Saints for a while. That defense is legit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of those teams are on the same level. I would agree with that.
Oh man, let's talk about the Saints-Raven game. So, Joe Flacco. No. Wait, hold on 1 second.
Justin Tucker.
Yeah, Justin Tucker.
The easily the most accurate kicker in NFL history, and this guy, I gotta see that. What was the number?
222. 222.
222 extra points in a row. His first one cost him. His first miss cost him the game.
Also, it was the first time Drew Brees has beat the Ravens, so now he has officially beat all 32 teams.
Yep.
On the same day, he gets his 500th touchdown pass.
Yep.
So now he's at 501 touchdowns on the season. He just broke the all-time, passing. If it wasn't for Mahomes playing really well, I would think Drew Brees would be a front runner in the seasonal MVP.
I mean, he had some crazy scoring games. The first 4 games, there was a game where he had 5 touchdowns. He had 3 passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns. Yeah, his numbers look pretty ridiculous coming into their bye week. So yeah, I would agree with that. But the Rams and Chiefs offenses have just been so monstrous that his numbers actually, even though they're great, pale in comparison.
Yeah, I mean, who else has a lot of touchdowns on the season so far? Andrew Luck.
Andrew Luck is playing out of his mind with nobody to catch the ball. He didn't have T.Y. Hilton until this week. He had been out the last, I think, 3 games. He was throwing to guys I've never heard of. They just got the guy they expected to be their starting running back this week. But before that, I mean, Andrew Luck was making like Eric Ebron look amazing. And I know Eric Ebron's talented, but
he's not 100 yards against the Patriots talented.
Yeah, right. Like it was just whoever Andrew Luck has, he's gonna get them the ball.
Right. And Andrew Luck, he was injured for last year and then came back this year, and a lot of people were counting him out this season as just another guy, but he has 20 touchdowns this season already. He's only 2 behind Patrick Mahomes. He's sitting at a higher completion percentage. He has less yards, but more interceptions. It's been sacked more. But he's doing really well. Same with LA Chargers quarterback. Sitting at 17 touchdowns.
Rivers?
Yeah, Phillip Rivers is having a great season as well.
He's been playing. He's a guy in the past who had a lot of interceptions, and that's not happening this year.
But man, it's been a
lot better.
Yesterday was pretty crazy day as far as football goes.
I mean, there's 2 more for sure we have to talk about. The Panthers game where the Eagles were up 17-0 and then gave up 21 unanswered points. 21 and at the very end they had a chance.
Unanswered points.
Yes, that's
in the 4th.
It's ridiculous. And they were at home.
In the 4th.
Home. And then Wentz had a chance. They had a chance to win the game at the end, and they end up fumbling the ball and losing.
What a heartbreaking loss. 21 unanswered points. You had the Eagles winning that game too, didn't you?
Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, you had
talking about yesterday's game?
Yeah, you had the Eagles.
Oh yeah, I thought the Eagles would win. I thought the Eagles would win. And as far as I said that the Panthers winning that game would be the least shocking upset. That it was really a toss up, but once the Eagles get out to a 17-0 lead, there's no way anyone thinks that the Panthers are winning that game.
Right. Cam Newton, 269 yards, and he led in rushing yards with 49, which is crazy because Christian McCaffrey only had, 29 yards rushing. But, I was talking about that. The Eagles have a really, really good rushing defense, and the Panthers are really one-sided when it comes to offense, and that's, relying heavily on the rushing abilities of McCaffrey and Newton. They don't really have any outstanding receivers on that team.
Been playing pretty well.
But they've been playing pretty well, man.
Okay. But outside of that, they haven't. I mean, they're getting Greg Olsen back into the lineup. This was his first game. He caught the touchdown to put them ahead. He didn't do anything else other than that, but it was his first game back, and if he can stay healthy, he had the bad fracture in his foot that he should have got. He needs a second surgery, but he's going to try to play this season through the pain.
Man, football players. Yeah, he only had two receptions for 5 yards. So it's not exactly a great game, but one of them was a touchdown, like you said, which was a much needed
Right,
touchdown.
and they needed that. The other game I was going to say we had to talk about was the Patriots and Bears game.
What a game. That game was
That's crazy.
sloppy. I don't like, if I'm a Bears fan, which I'm not, I'm upset at this game. It's a tough game to lose.
Really is.
You lost 3 games to teams that you've had a chance to beating. And you can't even put this loss on Trubisky. He played really well. But they made they got scored on in the worst possible ways. A punt, a blocked punt,
Yeah.
a
Special teams.
kick return.
I mean, if it wasn't for the Patriots special teams, yeah, exactly. The return, the Bears had this game. Like the Bears played better than the Patriots. I mean, and actually I can't say that because the Hail Mary at the end, that was a great defended play.
It was a
the
great
Hail
defended
Mary
play.
to tie the game. Like Josh Gordon was one of the people making the tackle at the 1. Like this big receiver catches the ball and all he has to do is stretch out. But the guys the Patriots sent out there, like Josh Gordon, end up making the tackle. That's so impressive.
Yeah, this is Josh Gordon had 100 yards yesterday, 4 receptions, 100 yards, averaging 25. Yeah. He's really going to be changing that offense. Gronkowski sat this one out, injured back. I don't see him playing, too much longer after this year. But they still have James White and Julian Edelman, and then Chris Hogan can pull his own every once in a while. He did yesterday. And, we're looking at a team that seems like every year they should be digressing, and they're still getting these wins against, 38 points. Obviously 14 of those were special teams. But we're looking at a team that's still doing really well against one of the best defenses in the Chicago Bears. Khalil Mack had a quiet game. He's playing on a bum foot.
He came in injured, yeah. So it's not surprising.
But man, one tackle.
I was on the Bears, thinking they could win this game. They looked pretty good, and the Patriots defense wasn't really stopping anybody. The only team they played well against was Miami, and I don't think Miami's good at all. So I just thought that I thought the score would be a lot lower. I did not foresee that. What did the game end in? 38-31.
38-31. You're only 1 yard away from calling that game wrong.
Exactly. I mean, the Bears are a good team. I hate to admit it, but they're a good team.
And that game was played such an offensive way that almost whoever got the ball first was going to win.
Or whoever had it last, almost.
Yeah, I don't know. Man, it was Trubisky, threw 2 interceptions. I believe they scored off both of them. And, he had that one play that was like 69 yard for 8 yards. And so I've been saying that for a while, that Trubisky knows how to scramble when he has to. His offensive line often collapses around him, so he kind of has to keep on his feet. But, Trey Burton had 126 yards. Tariq Cohen.
Finally started getting him in.
They have almost a whole entire new team from last year in the wide receivers. And
The wide receivers are completely rebuilt. I mean, they let go of Cam Meredith. I mean, Kevin White's been there, the guy who caught the Hail Mary, but Allen Robinson and Taylor Gabriel were brought in because they had no pass catchers that they could rely on.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I mean, they did all right,
Yeah, Trey Burton was really brought in to be an integral piece too, because the coach of the Bears Matt Nagy came from being under Andy Reid on offense. And so the Bears hired him to make their offense good because their defense was already good. And then they just traded for Khalil Mack. Their defense got even better. So he was brought in to try to give them some of this Chiefs offense that we already saw with Alex Smith last year. And so they signed Trey Burton because he was just in Philadelphia being Travis Kelce's backup. But he had showed he could be a receiver when not Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz when Zach Ertz was out. So he was brought in to be the Travis Kelce of this offense.
Exactly. And going forward, the Bears have 2 easy back-to-back games. The Jets are going to Chicago next week, and then after that, the Bills. That's going to be in Buffalo, and it's getting kind of cold, so they should have 2 easy wins there. And then they play 3 back-to-back.
Still be able to do it.
Yeah, they play 3 back-to-back division games after that. So, 2 of them are the Lions. And, if the Lions played like they did yesterday, if TJ Lang can stay healthy, those are going to be some close games. Thanksgiving games typically don't go in the Lions' favor. But, I think the NFC North is just so insane this year, man.
Yeah, it's tough, and it's worse than people even thought, because people thought the Bears would be pretty good, but they're actually really good.
Mm-hmm. Every team there is really good. The NFC North is the only division in the NFL right now where all 4 teams are above 500. They're only 1 game away from first to last place. There's 2 3-3s, 1 4-2, 4-2-1, and then 1 3-2-1. But man, this team, or this division that a lot of people thought the Vikings were going to walk away with, the Packers were going to put up a fight, the Lions were probably going to be dead last, and the Bears were going to be somewhere around there. It's probably the toughest division in the football right now. You can make arguments for NFC South, but with the Falcons being 2-4,
it's the only other argument. Yeah. I mean, record-wise, you could look at that, but the Falcons they play everyone pretty well.
They do play really
well.
Their
offense is just so good. I mean, they could, in those divisional games are tough, but between them, the Panthers, Falcons, Saints, but even the Bucks, are pulling out wins somehow, and they can score on anybody. They have so many weapons. But yeah, I think quality teams on both sides of the ball, or just having Aaron Rodgers, the NFC North is definitely the most difficult.
Especially because, Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers don't really have a good receiving team right now. Their wide receivers are often going in and out of the injury tent all game. And
it's just Aaron Rodgers makes them good.
Devontae
Adams is playing out of his mind.
They're going to Los Angeles next week off of bye. And then they're going to, Gillette Stadium to play the Patriots. So they have the Rams-Patriots next 2 weeks after a bye. So
that's insane.
That's tough. Playing
they
those
could
two
have 2
teams,
straight losses. Yeah.
Yeah, on the road against both of those teams, and you're like, dang. Then they play the Dolphins at home, and the Dolphins are hit or miss.
Schedule lightens up a lot. I mean, they have another game at Minnesota, which is tough. They needed that win in week 2 when they were the Green Bay Packers were at home, and it ended in a tie. They needed that win, because going to Minnesota, that's going to be a tough win. But if you look at the rest of their schedule, I mean, they get Arizona and Atlanta at home. I mean, at the end of the year, they get Detroit at home. Their schedule lightens up a lot. They could easily go on one of those runs where they're 3rd in the division and then they end up 1st.
Right.
By the end of the year.
I mean, they go to Seattle on the 15th of November, and typically the Packers do pretty poorly against Seattle for some reason, even when they have a lot better team. Playing in Seattle is going to be tough.
Seattle team, though. Yeah, it's a totally different Seattle team, though.
But regardless, I mean, that stadium is one of the hardest stadiums to play at.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't count them out in the game at all. I'm just saying, and you're not going to pencil in wins for the Packers. It's just that we've seen it as watching the NFC North, that the Packers will, even when they have a very bad record to start the year, Aaron Rodgers can just turn it on and just win multiple games just himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking at one of the There's 3 top 10 quarterbacks in the NFC, and Aaron Rodgers is probably arguably the number 1 quarterback in the league. Some probably could say of all time if he had a couple more Super Bowls, but I mean, we're looking at a guy who wasn't even drafted first. The 49ers picked up Alex Smith over him, but man, I wish they would have taken him. That'd been nice. Let's see. Is there any other game you want to talk about? they're, looking back, the Texans, the Jaguars, their locker
Jags
room's falling
they're
apart.
they're done. It's so weird that they benched their quarterback that started for them in the AFC Championship game last year. I mean, they're just it makes no sense. Even their defense isn't playing as well as it did before.
Wh-
Everything's falling apart there.
What do you think of them benching Blake Bortles, by the way?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, to bring in Cody Kessler, and actually Cody Kessler was okay. The only interception he had wasn't really his fault. The receiver let it go through his hands.
But, I mean, you take Blake Bortles out after only 12 passes. He completed 50% of those.
Fumbled the ball twice.
He did.
He's had ball security issues for the last few weeks too.
Right.
The Chiefs just made him look foolish.
But earlier in the year, we were talking about the Jags being one of the most dominant defenses in the league. And, Deshaun Watson.
They were, but,
Deshaun Watson pretty much tore these guys up. And, playing broken. So maybe the Jags are grossly overrated right now as far as defense.
I mean, they got ran all over. I wouldn't say Deshaun Watson completely killed them. But they did give up I think 100-yard game to Lamar Miller, who hadn't played anywhere near that level all year.
Yeah.
I mean, just earlier in the year, they were better. They were just better. Blake Bortles was playing better. Blake looked good. They beat the Patriots in a dominating win.
Right. They did. I mean, they did limit Hopkins to only 50 yards. And
yeah, I think their offense is just playing badly. I mean, they think they really miss Leonard Fournette being that dominant of a running back. We saw what Zeke did for the Cowboys when they had enough other offense with Dak and Dez and Witten that time period. The Jags could be that, but they don't have that running back just slowing down the game and just bringing the pain to the defense so until they just break down and Leonard Fournette just ends up with a ton of yards and touchdowns, and the defense for the Jags comes into the game fresh every time because the drives are long. That's basically what the Titans are doing. It's just the Jags did it even better last year.
Yeah, and going forward, this team is playing the Eagles next week, and if the Jags lose again, I think their locker room is done. I think they're done. I know there was a lot of articles on Reddit and ESPN and NFL talking about the Jaguars locker room yesterday after the game. And apparently there's like a lot of yelling, a lot of blaming, a lot of this and that. And, they're going to turn into the next New York Giants if they continue to just get upset with each other. You can't have your all-stars being upset, blaming your quarterback. Your quarterback gets frustrated, plays poorly. He's not a great quarterback as is. But, I mean, he's not the one who lost 20 points. And, So we're looking at a team that's super talented, but just, grossly incompetent.
That's where I can't just give up on them because there's so much talent there. It's like I would mention with the Texans, they had J.J. Watt, and they lost their first 3 games. I mean, and they've won 4 straight since. If you tell me if we go a month in the future and the Jags have won 4 straight because their defense is only given up 12 points a game, I would not be surprised. The talent's still there.
Yeah, I mean, they got the Eagles, the Colts, the Steelers, the Bills, the Colts again, the Titans, Redskins, Dolphins, Texans.
That's a lot of tough offenses to go against.
That is a lot of tough offense. Like we were talking about Andrew Luck, and the Colts are going to be tough. The Steelers are always tough, especially if they somehow get Le'Veon Bell back, which I don't think is happening. But,
it'll happen. I think that's going to happen by week 9 or 10. He has to report to be able to get. I mean, he's already given up a ton of money.
Yeah.
And I think he has to report by week 10 or he gets no money this year.
Yeah, so he'll be there probably. Does he have to play a game or only report to practice?
I mean, he has to play the games, but they don't have to start him if they don't want to. But I'd imagine they'd use him and Connor. They'd ease Bell back in and then use him up because he's going to be gone next year. So you might as well just put the miles on him instead of putting him on James Conner, who's going to be your next starting running back for the future.
So let's talk about tonight's game real quick. The Giants versus the Falcons.
Giants.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be – I think it's going to be pretty one-sided. Hopefully Saquon Barkley can go out there and get me like 40 points again so I can win. But
he's a beast, yeah. I think this game will actually be back and forth because the Falcons, they have no defense. The Giants, I feel like, could, with Barkley, can get enough offense going, and Odell can get enough offense going to stay in this game. I don't think it's going to be a lot of drives where there's 3 and outs for the Giants. I just don't think the Falcons defense can hold up against those two weapons for that many plays in a row. So I could see this being close.
Saquon Barkley is doing insane already. He just transitioned well to the NFL, like it wasn't even a transition at all. He just kind of steps in. He already has 438 rushing yards, 373 receiving yards.
It also helps that Eli goes to him so much. Their offensive line is so bad that you wondered before the season how well will he do, but it's almost like he's benefiting from it in a lot stat wise because Eli just dumps the ball off to him so he doesn't get tackled. Eli's the ultimate never takes a sack quarterback. He'll just get the ball out. And right now he just goes to Barkley when he does that.
I mean, he's been sacked 20 times on the season. So
yeah, I mean, he's also older.
Right. Yeah, I don't see him playing too many more years.
I was gonna say that just shows you how bad their offensive line is. That this guy who's known for that is getting sacked that many times.
Yeah,
and he's also making bad decisions.
That's another team that's having strong locker room issues. Odell Beckham Jr. seems to freak out almost every other game.
He
was yelling into a fan last week. Like, what do you?
It's got to be frustrating to be in that situation where there was rumors that a lot of the locker room just don't believe in Eli anymore, and I mean they made no effort to get a different quarterback or to even set up a quarterback for the future.
Yeah, I mean, Eli has been okay. I mean, I'm not really a big fan of his, especially from the way he came into the league, but man. He only has 6 touchdowns and 4 interceptions this year. They're not really doing that well. And we're looking at Odell Beckham Jr., who's probably one of the best wide receivers in the league. At least top 3, top 4.
He's one of the most naturally talented ever. He's a physical freak.
But he's just not getting open. Eli Manning, I don't think has the confidence in him. I think maybe he just doesn't like him because of all the back and forth they've had over the year. And
I think they also draw up a lot of stuff to pull plays away from him. He's going to get a lot of coverage, so they end up going the other way. That's where you see Sterling Shepard's having pretty big games, and Barkley obviously. I think Odell honestly should just. I think he's frustrated they're losing. I don't think it's like a get me the ball thing. I think it's when you're losing, it's get me the ball so we can win. I feel like Julio Jones says it best. Like, I don't care what's happening if we're winning. I'm not going to complain if we're winning.
Right.
But the Giants, I mean the Falcons, Julio Jones should be complaining they're losing, but I think it's a situation like that. I think it's just frustration. I mean, imagine having to just go through the whole year and just knowing your team is not good and you guys can't get it done, or thinking you can.
Speaking of Julio Jones, on the other side of the ball, the Atlanta Falcons, 708 yards, 0 touchdowns on the season. Do you think tonight's the night he gets his first touchdown?
I could see it. I mean, you could see it any game though. It just seems like the Falcons have a formula on offense that just doesn't get Julio Jones touchdowns.
Right. He's getting the yards, and then they pretty much dump it out to someone else.
Yeah,
You know,
I
Matt.
get it. I get it because it's the double coverage is probably on Julio.
Yeah, exactly. That's the same way with like the Detroit Lions, where most of the coverage is on Marvin Jones Jr. And because of that, Golden Tate, Kenny Galladay are stepping up. But Matt Ryan has 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's doing really well for Matt
Their
Ryan's.
offense is totally fine.
Yeah, Matt Ryan's one of those quarterbacks who not a lot of people think about when they think of really talented quarterbacks, but he's always up there stats wise. They're
But
always.
he was always a bottom of the top 10 list guy when the year ended, and then he had the year before last he had that like magical MVP year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then last year they lost their offensive coordinator, and their offense was bad. It seems like this year they've gotten used to the system, and they're back again, and he's playing well. It's just their defense is too many injuries.
Yeah, I mean they've only had 2 games this season out of the 6 where they haven't scored above 30 points. So their offense is doing really well.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Not giving Julio Jones touchdowns formula works. I mean, they're still scoring, so I don't see why it would change. They use him enough. It's just those touchdowns aren't there.
Yeah, he's averaging 118 yards a game, 0 touchdowns a game.
That's insane.
Oh, speaking of, one last thing before we get off here is speaking of exceptionally good years for wide receivers. Adam Thielen is doing incredible this year.
Yeah, Adam Thielen came into the year saying that people are underestimating him and saying that last year was a fluke and he was going to show them, and he really has. He has the benefit of playing with Kirk Cousins, who's a really good quarterback, and he plays across from Stephon Diggs,
who takes a lot of the
coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Adam Thielen playing out of the slot. It just seems like the slot receivers in the league right now are the guys that rack up that yardage, because it's the part of the field that just isn't defended as well. But I mean, you got to give Adam Thielen credit for what he's doing. He's so precise with his route running. It's crazy to think that he broke out at 26. You usually don't see that.
Yeah, especially another guy who pulls a lot of coverage on that team is Kyle Rudolph, who's a greatly underestimated tight end. And that team, you think of the Vikings, you don't think of Rudolph as much. You think of Diggs and Thielen. But he's also pulling a lot of coverage, leaving Thielen oftentimes doing one-on-one coverage. And
that's the thing. He's just so talented. One-on-one's not going to beat him.
Yeah, so especially like what you were saying with his extremely accurate route running. It's just almost impossible to guard someone as a number 2, number 3, safety.
Right. Or you're coming in as like the guy they put in the slot, maybe because you're not as good on the outside. You're gonna have no chance.
But yeah, he just he's 1 game away from tying Calvin Johnson for most 100 yards in a row. I think he's the first one to do it out of this season. And then they go to Detroit, or does Detroit come to them? And then if he breaks the record for 8 in a row, it's going to be against Detroit, which will be interesting. It's going to be in Minnesota. So if he goes, 8 games, if his 8th game, which they're playing the Lions, he could break Calvin Johnson's record, an old Lion. So that'd be interesting. Interesting to see. But the difference between the Lions and these other teams that they've played so far is the Lions have an extremely decent secondary. They aren't only reliant on one guy like a lot of teams are. They have really good pass protection all around. So I think they're leading the league still as far as overall secondary. It's hard to say. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that the Lions secondary can compete with the Vikings receivers once it comes down to it. But it's not a knock against the Lions. It's just how talented the pass catchers for the Vikings are. I mean, they could just go to Rudolph, really, like if the team has good cornerbacks like the Lions do.
Right. Well, here the interesting thing though is the Minnesota Vikings lead for most completions, and the Detroit Lions are tied. Well, one completion behind the second most defended. So they only have where is it? I was just looking at it. So they have only 119 passes completed on them. So,
Wow, that's a ridiculous number.
you just sent me a video of Thalen breaking this guy's ankles.
Diggs, what they did to the Eagles receivers a couple weeks ago was just nasty. They could not be stopped. Their route running is ridiculous. The way they can cut is crazy. These guys are ridiculously talented, and Kirk Cousins can put the ball right in place.
That team is talented, man. They had a fluke loss against Bills, which would, have them up another game. They'd be up at 5-1, but 2 games. But as we were talking about, the NFC North, man, is just too insane. There's not a front runner. There's not a team that's so far behind that's they don't have a chance. All 4 teams,
and any of the whatever team makes it out, it's not that we're just playing each other well. It's that whatever team makes it out, they could go on a run.
Exactly.
To at least the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, and whoever's second in that league is probably going to get a wild card. The wild cards are probably going to come out of the NFC North and the NFC South this year. Probably the Panthers and the Bears. I don't know. It could be any of them. No team in the NFC North has an easy schedule going forward. But no team has, besides the Rams, a game where you can be like, yeah, they're going to lose that game for sure. So, football. So you got, just to make sure, I'm going to read over you got the Falcons winning tonight? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
Yep.
I only got, this week I only got 2 games wrong, and that was the Browns-Bucks. I picked the Browns winning, and the Texans-Jags, I picked the Jaguars winning. So
I'm not going to pick the Jags for the foreseeable future. I just I do not trust them anymore. I thought they were going to be one of the best teams in the NFL, and I just they've shown they are not.
That game was tough for me to pick the Jags-Texans. I wanted to pick the Texans, but as soon as I found out, Watson was playing on bruised lungs and bruised ribs and bruised ego, I was like, maybe the Jags are going to be able to stop them. But like you said, man, they're falling apart. They're a team that's very frustrating. If I was a Jags fan, I'd be extremely frustrated with the way this locker room has been behaving, and it's tough. It's got to be tough. You can put the blame on Bortles. You can put the blame on your, offensive coordinator. You can put the blame on whoever you want. But the fact is, as a team, you're losing. And, it's not one guy. It's a team thing. And when you guys are arguing in the locker room, it's going to make it worse. So, yeah, I also don't see myself picking Jags in the foreseeable future. The Browns, lost on a 59-yard kick. So, oh, man. Tough. So far, I am 11 for 13 out of predictions this week. You're sitting at 9 and 13. Who'd you get? You got the Browns game, the Bears game, the Eagles. So, which, none of the games you picked were like blowouts. Bears were 1 yard away from winning. Browns were 1 field goal away from winning. The Eagles had an insane comeback by the Panthers, and the Jags got blown out, but that was it. But anyway, do you got anything else you want to say before we get off here?
I think we covered all the games and all the moments we needed to.
Yeah.
It was crazy Sunday.
Yeah, I'm going back over, seeing if there's anything that was exceptional that we missed, but I'm not seeing anything, so I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate it. If you guys are watching on YouTube, make sure you guys hit that follow button on my Twitter, which is 32andGoal for the footballs. And make sure you follow us on WackityYak on Twitch so you can watch the shows live. And other than that, thank you guys for stopping by. Thank you for the host, Dark Greg. I appreciate that. And thank you guys for coming out. Ryan, thank you for coming again. Appreciate it. And everyone else, I will catch you guys later. Have a good one.